So, good morning, everybody, and thanks for joining into today's session of the Design Nuances Edu Series by EQ Labs. The idea of this, series is to learn a nuance of a topic specific to design, architecture, fashion, get introduced to a new school, and understand their purpose of why they exist, right? And what difference they are bringing to the world of design. And the third aspect is to really interact with an expert. And this is the main aspect here, where you interact with an expert and absorb the knowledge that they need to share. So this is a 1-hour session. So what we can do is, let's get into the topic. So this session is brought to you by Vogue Institute of Art and Design. They're an institute based in Bangalore, and Anushri will talk a little more about it in a bit. But their guest faculty is Nikhil Baveja, who's going to be talking about unconventional design thinking. And that's something very, very interesting. Now, what Nikhil does is Nikhil is the founder and studio director of Nikhil, an experiential design studio. Right? He's pursued his master's in industrial design from Pratt Institute, New York, which is one of the top institutes in the world, right? And he's passionate about conceptualizing spaces, and he's got a team of designers that gets into the details, and they've done phenomenal projects across. Nikhil has, after studying, he's worked abroad in New York itself for about 10 years. And he's worked across segments like retail, store design, exhibition design, and furniture design, and product design. So he's done all of that. He used to also be an adjunct professor at the New York City Tech University. Right? So over to, so welcome, Nikhil. Thanks a lot for coming in here today.
Thanks, Dion.
And welcome, Anushri, as well. Thanks for making the time to come here. Anushri, if we can start off with you, give us a brief about Vogue Institute of Art and Design. Maybe introduce yourself as well, and then get into the school aspect of this, right? And then we'll take it from there. I'm going to stop sharing. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Yeah, am I audible now?
Yep.
So good morning, everyone. I'm Anushri. I'm an assistant professor at Vogue Institute of Art and Design. So today I have the immense pleasure to share with you all about my college, to introduce you all to about my college. So Vogue Institute of Art and Design, formerly known as Vogue Institute of Fashion Technology, is a unit of Mandura Educational Trust. It has created a niche for itself as a premier art and design institute in the country. Back in 1996, Vogue began its journey with merely 4 students in a single room in the downtown area of Bengaluru. Today, it boasts of having one of the finest art and design campuses in the country, with nearly 800 students studying in various disciplines, doing their undergraduate and postgraduate studies in the fields of fashion, textiles, interiors, gems and jewelry, animation, graphic design, product design and management, among others. It is also the only institution to have been chosen by the Government of Karnataka, Department of Industries and Commerce, to impart training for the underprivileged youth. Situated at Apparel Park, which is home to more than 75 apparel manufacturing units, it is a hub for training, development, and incubation activities. Further, the institute has international collaborations with prominent international universities such as De Montfort University, Accademia Costume and Moda, University of Sunderland, Accademia dell'Uso, etc., which gives an ongoing platform for student exchange programs, thus having international exposure. Vogue has a dedicated team of faculty members, including international academicians, drawn from foreign universities and industries who are constantly nurturing and mentoring the students, providing holistic development and ensuring a greater future. So now I'll be sharing my screen to present a video to you all so that you can have a virtual tour of Vogue Institute of Art and Design. I'll share my screen.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, yeah, is it visible?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Vogue helps you.
Anushri, it's stopped. Could you reshare?
Yeah, just a second. Yeah.
Nothing is on, Anushri.
It's not audible?
No, even the video is off.
The video is off.
I think you'll have to share.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just a second.
And you'll have to share sound as well.
Mm.
You're familiar with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. We're not able to hear the sound.
Yeah, now?
Now it's better.
Vogue helps you to turn your imagination into reality. It provides access to state-of-the-art equipment and facilities to hone students' creative skills and endeavors. With an inclusive environment, it fosters creativity, collaboration, and personal growth. In fashion designing department, there are no rules, only opportunities to push boundaries. Animation and game art department instills the art of engaging and creating interactive experiences. Interior and decoration, colors, textures, and patterns are the tools of an interior designer's trade used to craft a symphony of style. Jewelry design is a fusion of imagination and craftsmanship, resulting in wearable masterpieces that tell a story.
Yes.
All right. Thanks a lot for that, Anushri. So
Thank you.
fantastic. Very interesting to see the campus and the virtual tour of your campus. Right. So now let's get into the talk from Nikhil. Right. So something what all of us are looking forward to. Go ahead, Nikhil. You can take it from here.
Yeah, I'll just share the screen in just a minute.
Yeah.
So can everyone see this?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Yeah, is it a full screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you for joining us, everyone. And before we start the topic on unconventional design thinking, I'd like to, in fact, interact with the audience and find out, in fact, why we are doing design. What is the thing that drives us to do design? Why do we design things in space? Why do we design products? Why do we design exhibitions? Why is everything designed? Can anyone answer that question?
Yeah, Nikhil, it'll take a little time. There's a lag.
Okay.
So it takes a little time to get.
Okay. Anyway, so So for the students here, I'd like you to actually think about why you're doing design, why you're getting into fashion design, why you're getting into interior designing, what is driving you. So this is the first thing you need to actually figure out in your own head, and really dig deep into it, because design is not easy. It's not like it's on the computer. You need to think about it. And if you want to achieve something that's different, it takes time and it takes effort, and it's a process. So I'd like to invite the audience to actually think about this part of it before you getting into design school or the design profession. Now, our topic for the day is unconventional design thinking, and what I'm going to touch upon is just one of the approaches to unconventional design thinking, in the sense that if you look at the subheading, it says unconventional design thinking involves approaching design challenges in new and unconventional ways, often by questioning assumptions and reimagining traditional design methods. So what is unconventional design thinking? It's pretty much, if you look at the highlighted words there, it says reimagining traditional design methods, which means either we are evolving the design or we're creating a revolution in the design. So it depends on us where we want to take it. And when you talk about unconventional design method, how do we do this? We've heard the buzzword disruption a lot now. Disruption in design, disruption in technology, disruption. It's a big buzzword now. So it's a buzzword that's been around for a long time, but now it's been used a lot. So why do we want to disrupt design? So in terms of disruption, there are different ways of approaching the design. So if you want to disrupt design, we need to stretch it beyond our limits, and otherwise there's no point in doing it. Personally, if you ask me personally, when we approach design ideas, we completely take away from preconceptions and break away from preconceptions and earlier design thinking in order to create something new. Even if it's evolution in design, even if it's a small step in design, you have to imagine it in the future and take it to its limit, beyond its limit, see the limit, and then you can bring it back. So exactly what I'd asked earlier also, what do you want out of a design? Because it has to be something original. A lot of the times I see that people go into Pinterest and websites and copy and paste this and that. That is fine to get inspiration from design, but in order to get a pure design, you really have to break away from our preconceived notions and think about it in a fresh approach. So in design, whether it's evolution or you're making a revolution in your design, even tiny steps or large steps, the design process is quite different from the usual preconceived design processes. So by preconceptions, can I ask questions here, Dion, or is it difficult for them to answer?
So you can ask questions, and we'll get a little time for the responses to come in. Okay. But they can type it out, and we'll get the questions in. Okay, we'll get their answers in.
Okay, maybe then I'll go a little slow here because I'd like the audience to interact here.
Okay, perfect. No worries.
Yeah. So when I say preconceptions, I'm going to give a few simple examples, just to keep it very simple and clear. So I'm asking the audience this: what visual comes to your mind when you say the word a car? Are there any answers coming in?
Yeah. So please feel free to type your answers in, and I'll moderate the answers. Okay. So for your previous question, actually, Nikhil, there's been answers which says from Sana Karpal, who said design helps in making new things with our own imagination. This is your previous question. Okay. And Sriparna has said to help and make the world easier for the public by using raw creativity plus with symmetric methods.
Nice.
Okay.
Fantastic. Yeah, these are all right answers. There is no right or wrong answer. Design is design, and design is always evolving. I'm glad you'll answer that. Thank you. Now, so I have this question that says, what visual comes to your mind when you say the word a car, a toy, a chair? Anyone have any answers for these? I can wait a little bit for the audience to.
Yeah, we can wait for a couple of minutes and
Okay.
see what.
So, okay, so typically, I'm sure you'll have the answer for this. A car would be, you would imagine four wheels with a body, or a toy is something that you play with, either a gun or something like that, something that you've already played with, or a chair with four legs with a seat. So typically, when you say, okay, you want to design a toy, your mind automatically goes into a preconceived image of a toy because you've played with it as a kid, you've interacted with it with your kids or other kids. So you have a preconceived notion. So that's why the mind gives you that fixed idea of a car. Okay, it's got four wheels and it's got a body. Okay, they're different designs, they're different brands that have cars, so they're slightly different from each other. But a car is a car; it takes you from place to place.
So a couple of comments come in.
Yeah.
So Misha Jain is saying a black Audi on the road.
Yeah.
Vidula Ramesh is saying a wooden chair in a classroom.
Okay. Any other answers?
That's about it for.
Okay. So there you go. So black Audi.
Lakshita is saying an object which is designed as per people's imagination.
Okay, which one is that? Is it all three or one of them?
Yeah.
Okay, I guess it's all three, but that's good. That's a good answer that you've given me, because the way to break away from this process is that we define the purpose, like you just said. So, for example, when you say instead of saying design a toy, for example, the exercise is design a toy. If we say design for play, it creates a whole nother aspect of design. You can use any kind of material. You can go all out to create this design because it's an open thing. If you say toy, your mind is already slightly closed in. But when you say design for play, it can be for any age group. It can be with any material. It's just an interaction. So what we have to do is to break away from preconceptions and say, okay, I'm not going to design a toy, but I'm going to design something to play with. So that way, my mind is open, and it's like a waterfall of ideas that come in. In another example, at one point, Sony was exploring, expanding their line of televisions, and they did a marketing research, and the marketers came back and they said, okay, what people want is more TV. So they want more TV. So Sony said, what do you mean by more TV? So they said, do they want a bigger TV? Or do they want more TVs in? So what Sony thought was they wanted a bigger screen. But they didn't go ahead with that, because what the public wanted was more TV in the house, means a TV in the room, TV in the kitchen, TV everywhere. So that's what they meant by more TV. So what the company was saying was, let's just create a bigger TV and that'll be good enough for them. So you don't know what comes out of market research either. So again, we define the purpose and we say, okay, more can be bigger or more can be more in quantity. So let's get into preconceptions, and how do we break away from preconceptions? So to break away from preconceptions, we have to think abstractly. And we think beyond our imagination, and we have to stretch it to the entire limit, and see where we can take our designs. So by abstraction, we've heard the idea of thinking outside the box, but I think we should take it one step further, and you think outside the box in another box. So you have to really stretch it, so that you really reach the limit. And when you said, okay, you've reached the limit, okay, we are done with our design for that point. So by abstract, we mean by abstract design refers to a style of visual representation that does not attempt to portray realistic or recognizable images. So that's what I say by abstract design, because if we think abstractly, we're thinking fresh. And each abstract interaction, for example, if you look at the cube here, it could be a small, depending on the scale, it could be a very small scale a cube. It can be a really large space where this thing is about 50 feet high. So each because it's abstract and you go to it, each individual has a personal experience about it because they've never experienced it before. Of course, over time they will get used to it and they'll know what it's about. But it's about, we don't have any preconceived notions about this thing, and we don't know how to do it. We don't know how to interact with it. So that's why we each experience is a different experience for the user, and that's why by being abstract, you're creating a whole new world. You're revolutionizing the design. So how do we get into this abstract process? I'll just very briefly, because it's a very short session. It's actually a very lengthy thing to get into design layers. But I'll just briefly get into the process of creating an abstract design and how you go about creating your design abstractly.
Yeah.
So now, whether it's an existing or a new design, you always want to explore and see what more the design can do for us or for the user. So the traditional approach, which I feel is one of the best approaches, although they have AI, they have VR, they have AR, all that stuff. But from mind to paper, the best approach and the fastest approach, the most accurate, I feel, still is sketching. So what we do is we do sketches, we do ideation, we do a lot of ideation in conjunction with a three-dimensional model. So it's always a combination of sketching. You do a model, you look how you take a look at it either three-dimensionally or on the screen, and you turn it around, you see how it works, and then so it goes back and forth in terms of product design, whether it's product or it's furniture or it's fashion or it's typography. It's the design principles are the same. It's a three-dimensional design thing that you interact with finally. So how do we approach unconventional design thinking? The first thing we need to actually think about is, where is this element coming? If it's a product, if it's in a room, if it's a furniture piece, or something that you hold a cup, how does it work in my hand? How do I sit on it? What is it? How do I feel of it? Feel about it in the space. So the basic elements that we interact with in our environments are spatial elements, volumetric elements, and they can be further broken down into gesture and line. Gesture in the sense that, what is it doing in space? How is it interacting with? Is it comfortable? Is it not comfortable? If you, for example, if you see my hands, it gives you a sense of space. It gives you a sense of space. This is a very tight space. This is a very open space, and this is a comfortable space. I don't know if you can see the mirror, the camera. Sorry, but space is about how you interact in the environment. So what we do, it's an interaction of elements, three-dimensionally, two-dimensionally. It's an interaction of elements. So what we do is, the first thing that you look at is you look through the design, through design is through your eyes. So the first thing that you see is a visual experience. So design, of course, there's a lot of engineering that goes into it, but design is actually the first point of contact is a visual experience. So what you want to do is to make it a conversational piece. I mean, you don't want to have something that's just boring. But sometimes boring need not be simple, need not be boring, because for example, if you look at a Mac computer, it's a very simplistic design. It's a very simple design, but it's very elegant. So boring need not be bad, and so it needs refinement. And every design is refined. Every aspect of design is refined. And so, what story are we giving to our audience? If when you're designing a product, or when you're designing a space, or we're designing fashion, or we're doing typography design, what is the story? What is it we're trying to give to the audience? So when we go beyond design, I'm giving some examples here where the first image here is actually a table light. We can easily just put a bulb and it'll serve the same purpose. But why do we design things so that it's beautiful? Because it gives a good feeling. It gives a very nice feeling to our experience. Same thing. The second thing is a speaker. I mean, a speaker can be a speaker, but they've done a really elegant design because it's probably something that sits in a living space, in a living area, living room. Similarly, on the last image that you see on the right is a shoe design, very futuristic. We've never seen shoes like this, but this is where we need to take our designs in case we do get into shoe design. So we need to push the limits, push it to its outer limits, and then bring it back to reality, and then say, okay, it will evolve, but this is what our target goal is. So going beyond in terms of architecture, on the right is a famous architect called Frank Gehry. He could have just created a box for a museum, but he created this experience. It's more of a, when you get into a museum, you want to feel like you're in a museum. You want to feel the space. You want to feel, wow, this is really like, something that's really cool to be in. So that's where, he's gone beyond the typical conventional method of, creating a space with just something, 4 walls and windows and a display area. I came across this installation, which was very interesting. It's actually a letter that is projected on a film of steam, a mist actually. I mean, again, here they could have just projected it on a screen or on a wall, but the effect of the steam coming out from below, and the whole effect of it is a different experience altogether. So here the artist wanted to create a visual experience where the letter would come down all the way, and as the words and the sentences finish up, they fade away in the horizon. Again, here an art installation where they've done visuals in a kind of an installation format here, which could again be just a simple format. But they did a walk around the exhibition, the installation, and it created a visual experience for the user. In terms of furniture, in terms of like a rocking chair. The one on the right, if you look at the one on the right, it's very unique. It's very unique looking, but it still works, and it's still beautiful looking. But they've made it very unique. It's not a typical rocking chair. Similarly, on the one on the left. And in terms of typography, you see the number 5 is done very differently, very elegantly. Maybe the user wanted a different experience, or had a different image in mind to say, okay, this is how I want the number to be designed, and the whole font is designed in this way. Similarly, saving the date, saving the day, it could have been done very simple, but it's very stylized. It's very stylized. Maybe that's the way it was done for the event, maybe event or a wedding. But so everything falls into place once you start relating the elements to each other. So now I come almost to the end of our discussion. So can anyone guess who this is?
Right. I'm gonna switch it to Q&A, because if I put it on Q&A mode, then we'll get live answers. Yeah.
Sure.
What's your question?
So there's an image here,
Okay.
and it says that only about a dozen of his paintings exist, yet we have over 13,000 pages of his sketches and drawings. Can anyone guess who this? It's an easy guess. I'm sure you'll get it. Any answers coming in?
Just a second. Yeah. Just a second. Da Vinci is one of the ideas. Leonardo da Vinci.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely right. So what was special about Leonardo da Vinci? Because these sketches, even people do in this day and age. Anyone have any answers on why he's such a amazing person, designer, artist, whatever you may call him? What made him so special?
Okay. We're waiting for answers to come in. So,
Okay.
yeah. But it's amazing what to see to see this work. Yeah. Okay, he was very curious. Sri Parna is saying he was very curious.
Okay, correct. Yeah. What else? What was so important about these drawings that we look at it even today? And
Yeah.
people when he had made these drawings thought he was crazy. Why would they think that he's crazy at that time?
Yeah. So Gyanish is saying he's bold. Sri Parna is saying his curiosity led him to specializing and exploring multiple fields.
Yeah. Both right answers, correct.
Yeah. So Lakshita is saying he's passionate about objects he sees around.
Okay.
Prabhakaran is saying he's creative.
Absolutely right.
Anant Narayanan says he's a visionary and futuristic.
I'm sorry, what was the last one? It broke off.
Visionary and futuristic.
Absolutely. So that is actually the closest answer. So Narayanan, great answer. Because in the 14th and 15th century, where he was when he was alive, people thought that whatever you're drawing is crazy. And at that time, because he is visionary, at that time he created designs for the helicopter or submarine or an aeroplane. And people thought that at that time, what is it that you're creating? But he knew that in the future, these are the things that will exist. And that's why, we need to push it to beyond the limits. And now we have all these things. We have all these things centuries later after he's died. But he had the vision. He had the vision to say, okay, let's see what else humankind can create. And he just didn't evolve the design. He made a revolution in design. So if you imagine it now, to me, we need to imagine things in the future in order to have a start of our designs. Thank you.
Awesome, fantastic. I think you brought this in very well. This concept, Nikhil. I mean, it's been an amazing way you've delivered this concept. You started off with why design, why disrupt design. You've taken it into preconceptions and how do you break away from them. And then you went into abstraction and you spoke about the layers in design. And then you spoke about design as a visual experience. And then you went into various examples. So fantastic delivery of this particular topic. Open to question and answers from the audience. So anyone wants to ask a question, we have some time now for question and answers. So please feel free to answer. But a lot of comments coming in for the previous question.
Yeah, please.
That Leonardo was ahead of his time.
Absolutely.
Vidula is saying he's different from what was designed back then and different conventional methods. Narsimhan is saying he's multidisciplinary.
Absolutely right. All these are right answers.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, the point to drive in is, imagine the future that doesn't exist now, and it will exist in the future.
So actually, isn't that the biggest challenge right now to imagine?
That is the biggest challenge. So you have to put put yourself maybe 100 years in the future, maybe 10 years in the future, at least start off, because, it's tough to imagine 100 years in the future. It's very difficult. But, if you put yourself in smaller steps, like say, for example, 10 years or 5 years, it becomes easier to train your mind. And, that way you can start in baby steps, and then you can finally become like, design is an experience, and it takes a long time to get your mind trained to it. So, it's a process that you have to keep training your mind about detail, about what the future looks like. You may be wrong, you may be right. It's anticipation of what you think would be the future.
All right. Nice. I like this last line that you have in your slide. If you imagine it now, it will exist in the future. It's a beautiful line.
Thank you.
So Shipana is asking, does design always need to be presented in a complex manner using complex methods?
Not necessarily. In fact, design should be presented, your design should speak for itself. So it should be a very simple design, and the presentation should be, not saying simple design, your presentation should be very simple. It doesn't have to be complex at all. In fact, if it's complex, then it confuses the audience. Even if it's a very complicated design, in order to have a very effective design presentation, you need to have very effective tools. So that's why sketching is very important, and also creating a nice 3D model so that the people get a feel for the space. Sketching for yourself, because you do a lot of ideation, a lot of thoughts come to your mind. As soon as a thought comes to your mind, you have to sketch it out. And if you're good at sketching, it's good for your own visual understanding, and the person who's doing a visual production, for example, a 3D model or a CNC model or a 3D printed model, to understand exactly what's in your mind. So that's why it's important to learn these skills earlier in your design days, so that while it keeps developing, it keeps evolving.
All right. So there's a interesting question here regarding, so Gyanesh is asking, what are your thoughts on Neom City being built? Now, Neom City, for those who are not aware, it's a vertical city spread like a line, designed as a line, and the whole city, and this planned for Saudi Arabia, as the whole city is designed, in a horizontal line along length. I don't recall how long that lane is, but it's a mega project. So do you have an opinion on that, a thought on that? Is it revolutionary? Is it?
Yeah, it's definitely revolutionary. But to me personally, it's a great project. But nature, I feel nature there is compromised. The whole experience of going into a country or a city is about, walking around it, experiencing, getting into lanes, walking with the trees, walking with nature. So I find, of course, there's going to be nature here also. There's a lot of nature. There's a lot of natural environments here that's produced. But it's to me, it's a little bit, I wouldn't say fake. I would say it's a little too made up, personally. So.
True.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's with a lot of the designs that we see in the Middle East, right? Because the desert space, and how do you make that into an environment, and that's a big challenge for the designers.
Correct. Yeah.
Cool. Another question coming in: does the design college we go to determine our design skills in future, and our position as a designer in society? So does the school define us? And
the school will only help you with the skills that you need. It will not define you. You need to define it for yourself. Finally, you get out and you say, okay, I want to do a certain thing of design. Like, for example, I want to do furniture design, or I want to do architecture. That will be the school will definitely help you out. In terms of guiding you, and in terms of providing the right skill that you need to get out. But once you get out, it's entirely up to you who you want to work with, because you will get a right feeling of the person that you want to work with, or the company you want to work with, or the area of design that you want to work in. Like, for example, fashion design, or do you want to do creative writing, or do you want to do interior designing or product design? Even in product design and interior designing, there's so many different parts of design, so it's entirely up to you what you want to do. Take your design. Where do you want to take your design?
Right. So on these lines, it's very interesting because for us to perceive product design or interior design, these are physical things which is very easy to perceive, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Could you just give us a little more details on experiential design, right? What is that about?
Yeah.
What you do, in your company?
Yeah. So what we do is, we really understand what the client needs. It's about understanding what he needs and what we feel should be in that environment. For example, you have a residential space, you have a living room. Of course, the typical requirements will be, okay, we have a sofa, we have a TV, we have a this, and we have that. But we need to understand exactly what the age group of the client is, and understand what is his requirement, because sometimes they want something really fancy, they want something like almost out of a Star Trek movie, or sometimes you want to have like something very like muted, something almost Zen-like. So we want to really dig deep into what the client needs and what we feel should be in that design, even if maybe the client, what he needs is not the right thing. What we do is we actually suggest ideas and say, okay, this is the right environment, this is the right kind of furniture that we need for your space, instead of just saying, okay, let's copy paste, and let's get it done. So because finally the client or the person who's going to be in that environment is going to live in that environment, is going to interact with that environment, and he has to feel very comfortable, very secure, and not say, oh, I don't like this color, it's very uncomfortable, lighting is not nice, the color is not okay, the sofa is not okay, So that's a very simple example. So, digging deep into what is required and what we can project for him is what experiential design, what we do in experiential design is.
All right. All right. So we'll get into the next things, but just building up on what Sriparna's asked earlier about the design school, whether the design school defines us, and I loved your answer that really the design school only offers a platform, really, and gives you the skills. And I think this is a very important question that Sriparna has asked, because a lot of students look at the design school as everything, but irrespective, you can go to a great design school and do nothing with it, or you can go to a very new design school and you can do a lot with the platform that they offer, right?
I'll give you I'll give you a personal example. When I went to design, do we have time, Leon?
Yeah, we have another 10 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, so when I went to Pratt, the whole design approach was completely different. It was an abstract approach. I didn't know what was abstract. I didn't even know the meaning of the word abstract. And so we were taught only about design, and not about creating a toy or a car. So we created really things that were out of the world here. And when I got out of my design school, I thought, okay, I'm going to be this really hotshot designer. I'm going to get a fancy job. And none of it happened. None of it happened, because wherever I went, people said, your designs are too crazy, we can't hire you. And so I was depressed. And I was like, I came out of a master's program thinking that I will come out and I'll be this hotshot car designer or something, and they'll hire me because I'm so cool and this and that. And nothing happened. Exactly the opposite happened. But what it taught me was, it pushed me over the limit. And now when I do my designs, I know where to draw it, and not, you create designs in your mind where you push the limits, and then you bring it back to reality. And then that's where the training comes into play. And that's why I appreciate what I did at Pratt, even though I didn't get a job for many years. I did my own thing. So, yeah.
Awesome. Yes. And really, design gets you multidisciplinary skills, right? So So you can, one aspect is to get a job, the other aspect is to really be an entrepreneur, right? So
Absolutely.
you've what I liked is that you've identified a space called experience design, and you've got into that, right? Because from industrial design you've gone into experience design, and that's an interesting transition, right? And like even if I look at ourselves, right, at DQ Labs as a institution, and the founders who Sean and Umesh, they are also industrial designers, but right now we're designing education, right? How education needs to be delivered, right? So really it's that, it's two things. Number one is you learn the skill sets, but those skill sets can be applied into various contexts, right? And it's for each one of us to identify that area of opportunity and work towards that, right?
Absolutely, Dion. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. um Neela Madhavan is asking, design thinking is a process. So how do students who take up design develop this important skill?
Yeah, so good question. How do you develop the skill? Because you have to train your mind, like I said earlier, you have to train your mind to break away from our preconceived notions. And our preconceived notions are there because we live with them at all times, and at every instant, we've already learned, we've trained our minds, our parents have told us, do this, do that. So we have certain preconceived notions that we need to break away from. And in order to get that out of our minds, we have to create abstract designs, either in our mind or on the computer, or actually three-dimensionally, and imagine this thing being in that space. So you have to, like, it's more exploratory, I would say. Explore a lot, and you may not get anywhere, but you have to keep exploring. And then finally, when you keep doing this process, it's a process of hand sketching, imagining, and doing the three-dimensional models. It's a process. That's why it's about layers. You have to keep going back and forth, and refining it.
Right, very important. Satish is asking, economics is a hard constraint in most real world product design.
Mm.
How does it fit into design thinking aspects? So keeping the finance aspect in mind, or budgets in mind. I love this question.
Mm. Yeah. So actually, economics, like you said, is very important, and a lot of it. Now people talk about cost. How much does it cost? How much does it cost? Everything is about cost, and everything is about cutting costs. So you have to definitely keep that in the background of your thinking, and you can't go. I mean, that's where your training of your design thinking happens. You've already thought of the future, but then at the back of your mind, you look at what's the reality. How much does it cost? How many products that I need to make? Is it going to be made here in India? Be made in China? So all these things come into play after you've done the design process and design thinking. And then that's where you do the entire exploration. And then you say, okay, this is what fits into this model. And I say, okay, this is what's going to work. So it's a lot of thinking, a lot of, I would say, puking of design ideas, and you just throw it out there. I'm sorry for the word, but you just throw it out there. And then you say, okay, this is what's the best thing for the product for this time. And this we need to manufacture in 1 year or in 2 years, or in 6 months or in 2 months. So depending on at the time frame that you have to pick and choose. But it's good to have all the choice there instead of having, okay, I just have 2 choices and I don't have any other choices. So that's why the design exploration comes into play.
Nice. So Prabhakaran is asking, how does technology help with designing?
The technology is very important, but the creative process has to come in your mind. AR and VR and AI, all these are very important tools that help the designer to process certain parameters and things like that. But the final creative emotional thing has to come from the designer.
I like the fact that you pointed out that AI is a tool, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That the designer can use, because right now the buzz is that, okay, is AI going to take our jobs, our creative jobs, right? So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I don't think it'll only help us enhance our designs. It can give us many options. It can help us in creating material options, cost options, predicting what's going to happen in terms of shape and form. But the final judgment lies on us, because we have the emotion. AI is still a machine.
Yeah,
at least up until now.
No, but it reminds me of the early 90s when computerization came
Yeah.
in, right?
Yeah.
And I remember the protests that bank people went through. They said, no, we don't want computerization, right? And there were protests about it. And ultimately, of course, they said that. And today, it's enhanced banking so much. And it
Absolutely.
has a convenience, right? So it's a tool.
I mean, look at drawings. AutoCAD was earlier done by hand, with the draftsman. I mean, now these guys are like don't exist anymore. It's all on the computer now, but it's a tool. It's still a tool. You
Yeah.
still have to use your mind and figure out spaces and things like that.
Yeah. Right. So, Lakshita, I'm going to come back to your question in a bit. All right. But Shrish, excuse me, Shrishant has asked, what is the difference between a UI designer and a product designer in terms of their job roles?
A UI designer is more of user interface. It's more, on the computer. It's more like, interfacing on a two-dimensional screen. A product designer would typically create a three-dimensional product. Something that you can hold in your hand, a phone or a teacup.
Yeah.
Anything else, anything that's a human scale is a product designer.
Right. So Shrishant, just to build up on that, right? So anything physical that you can touch and feel, right, physically, that is product design, right? So the process of designing that is product design. So the job role requires you to make various drawings, come up with concepts, and actually maybe make a physical prototype, and then test that prototype out and see how it works. However, a UX designer does digital interfaces, right? Is it purely digital, or does it go beyond that?
It's purely digital.
Yeah. So UX designer does digital design. So what they do is, let's say you're developing a website and changing the experience in the website. So you actually do wireframes, you test it out. You can have clickable, buttons, which go from one page to the next page, and then you design that. These are all testing, again, prototypes, but it helps you understand the experience and deliver a good digital experience, right? So the two roles are very different, and hope that helps you with that answer. That helps your question. Yeah? Anant Narayan is asking a question, and this is a very interesting question. Design is an inside-out output or an inside-out process. What does the convincing process look like in the corporate world? How is the iterative process impacting designers' free thinking, right? So if I have to paraphrase that, so designers look inside out, all right, but how does the free world, or how does the corporate world accept these free thinking ideas?
I'm not sure if I've understood the question fully.
Okay, let's break it up. Okay, design is an inside out output. So is it an inside out process, or is it an out different, right? What do you think?
Yeah, I would say it's an inside out process. Yeah.
Okay. What does the convincing process look like in the in the corporate world?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because if it's an iterative process, if it's an iterative process, so you go on experimenting.
Mm-hmm.
Designers have a free thinking approach, right? It's a little more fluid approach where they do things and then test it out and see the results and then make further changes, right? How is this accepted in the corporate world?
So the design that you create has to be realistic, so that the corporate world is open to accepting it. And the corporate world sometimes, in the corporate world, they expect to have something that's more futuristic. So that's their flexibility. For example, if you look at a theme park, they want to have something different. It's not the usual roller coaster rides and things like that. So that's where, it depends on the openness of the corporate world, depends on how open they want to be. And that's where you read the people that are on the other side, and you say, and that's how you create your design, and that's how the refinement happens over years of experience, saying that, okay, let's not present this idea, it may not go through. Let's present this idea, it may go through. It depends on the context of the product or the space that you're designing.
All right. This brings me to the next aspect in the corporate world, right? So you have a design team. Again, you would have experienced this, and then you have the marketing team, and then you have the finance team, and there's always battles that go on between the three, right? Or maybe more departments.
Absolutely.
How is it that a designer, really gets their idea of the design in place while battling with these other departments?
Yeah, it's not always, but a lot of the time it is a battle between these three departments, because the marketing team will have a certain idea of what this design has to be, and the finance team will say, okay, we can't spend so much money. This is how much we need to spend. And so the final thing is usually a merger of all three and a mix of all three, where you have to draw a line or find a common ground between all three departments.
Okay, right. We're just almost out of time, so I'm gonna take the last two questions which are here. Sriparna, so let me take Srishant's question. Okay, so Srishant says, thanks for answering the question regarding UI, UX design and product design. But still, why do companies like Microsoft and Google hire product designers?
Because they also have products that they launch out in the market. So, and they also want to explore, like Google is primarily on the net, but they do a lot of exploration outside their existing, the main business as well. So they do product designing, and it's because it's such a huge company, and products are such a intrinsic part of our lives. Products will definitely play a part in terms of technology and where they're exploring things.
Yeah. On these lines, with the advent of AR and VR and all these experiences, the digital experiences, how important is digital product design as part of that, right? Because probably things will never come into fruition, but is required in the online space.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so digital, in terms of digital design, you're saying?
Digital product design. So developing products for digital environments, right? So let's say in the metaverse, right? You'll be designing various products for the metaverse. So a product designer typically specializing in the digital products, right? Not necessarily things that will be physically. Do you see that as a trend increasing, or as we get more into immersive experiences, do you think that as something that could create a new line for product designers?
Yeah, absolutely. It will. Yeah, because what happens in the metaverse is something in the future almost. So, creating products for that will definitely happen for sure. And that's where, like you said, product design will also be a big part of this thing.
All right. So Sriparna is asking, speaking of the Indian society and its orthodox views, how do we communicate our design in such an environment? Say a new design or a revolutionary design in this environment.
Yeah, so it depends. It actually depends on how convincing you are, basically. So if you're creating something new, you want to get funding for it. You have to be convincing enough, and you have to be convinced and passionate enough to say that this is actually what I want to create for the future, and pretty much that's where it has to start off with, definitely. And then the process is quite a long process to get this product. If it's a completely new product out there, getting people to be, what do you call it, convinced of your ideas is what really matters.
Right. There's a very interesting question here from Advait Ajit, who's asking, now this is a question specifically to you, moving from a design school towards a project in a professional setting, did you find the corporate limitations restrictive to your creative process?
Yep, it did. It's a good question, very good question. Because, when in design school, but yeah, let me start with design school. Design school will teach you the skills, it will teach you the exploration of how to do your design. But when you get out into the real world, you get a lot more experience in terms of, first of all, politics within the corporate environment. And then, in terms of creativity, you get jammed in creativity because a lot of the times these guys will not accept your ideas because you've come out of a pure, as kind of a shell where you've not been exposed to the corporate environment. And that's why it's good to be exposed to an extent to the corporate environment while you're in school, so that you can think about what's happening in the real world as well. So it is challenging when you get out because you're inexperienced, and you're learning a lot. Even when you get out, you learn a lot because a classroom environment and a corporate environment is completely different. Yeah.
All right. And the last question, Lakshita, is jewelry design good at Vogue? Yeah, Lakshita, you can definitely connect with the team at Vogue. Chetra, if you can share contact details, and I will post it here on this chat, or I will update it into the description of this webinar. Advait, your last question, I'm going to take this last question. How did you change your creative process or approach to suit this new atmosphere?
I didn't really change it. I kind of adjusted it because my process is still the same. If you look at my background, it's still got a sketch, and I still do sketching. And my process is still the same. It's just about finding a mid ground between what they're expecting and what I would portray my design as. So it's about experience. When you get into the world, you figure it out while you're there. There's no real formula to it. You just need to figure out where you're comfortable. There's that sweet spot, pretty much. That's where you need to be at.
All right. And on those lines, Nikhil, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you here and a wonderful interaction. And I love the questions from the audience as well, because there've been so many, such an interactive session. It's been Chetra, thanks to the team at Vogue for having Nikhil over here. And if anyone's interested, please share the communication details with me or contact details for Vogue, and I will share it with the rest of the. I will add it to the description of this webinar. Thanks once again, and all the best to the students. And thanks again, Nikhil.
Thank you. Thanks, Dion. Thanks, Vogue.
Bye.
Bye.